Coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker at 1233 American Legion Drive. This is Hoggman the Watchman. And I haven't done a whole lot of anything today. All I've done today is get up at 6 o'clock. Actually, I got up at 10 till 6 this morning, woke my son up, who was supposed to be up at 5:30, and woke him up. And you know how guys can get straight up out of bed, go like this, and walk out the door. And that's what he did, because I had to take him to school at 6. Then I came back home, got ready to go to work, dropped our van off at the dealership to have the oil changed and a bunch of things checked out on it. Had Gary pick me up, came over here, worked on the Watchman broadcast, recorded the Watchman video broadcast this morning, went back downstairs, slammed down a sandwich, went and picked up the van from the Toyota dealership because it was done, called my wife to come and get it, telling her that it was done here so she could have her vehicle back finally. And then I started working on today's Pastor Mike online live broadcast after today. Then I got to take my boys to the doctor this afternoon and then go home, slam down some supper, take Caleb to football practice, and then go home. And my wife will say, "Why are you so tired?" Actually, I'm not tired. Days like this don't bother me a bit. Good to be here with you today. And I am not going to try to rush through what we have to deal with today, and I have several things to deal with. I may, if you're good, once again give you a preview of what I'm going to be dealing with in the Watchman video broadcast. It'll make you mad. It made me mad, and it will make you angry. There is a pastor by the name of Perry Noble, and you can go Google him or do whatever you want. This guy is raunchy. I'm not kidding you. There's something wrong with him. And I've got a video clip that if we get to it today, we'll see it. If not, I've got a UFO video from CNN. Can you believe that? UFO from CNN, and we'll talk about that. I have another video clip. Who is this by? Pat Robertson. Okay, Mr. New World Order himself. You'll be amazed at how spiritual he is on this video clip. But anyway, I want to start out today. I've got several pieces of paper to read you, but I want to start out today with a couple of emails that was sent to me. One Wednesday, and the other one was Wednesday, which is Woden's Day, named after the Norse god Odin, in case you didn't know that. Sunday, as some people like to point out, is named after the sun god. And so people say, you shouldn't worship God on a pagan day. They're all God's days. Okay? Just because people name them stupid, that's not God's fault. Moon Day is named after the moon. Tuesday, there's some other god, I can't remember. Woden's Day is Wednesday. Thor's Day is tomorrow. Friday is something else. And then Saturn Day. Saturn is actually like the main god of all the planetary bodies. And that's why he's number 7. Saturn is actually Satan, by the way. So anyway, but these were sent to me yesterday, and I've got permission to share what's on them. But I told them I wouldn't give their names out for anonymity purposes. But it just goes to show you that this week's Watchman broadcast has a lot to do with good church gone bad, is what it is. And people sent me some stuff to look at, and I did a little research of my own and just compiled some things together. There was actually a verse out of the book of Isaiah chapter 1 that talks about how is the faithful city becoming harlot. And I remember reading that years ago, and I'm going, that scares me. It blows me away that people that used to be faithful, churches that used to be faithful, denominations that used to be faithful, ministries, radio talk show hosts that used to be faithful are no longer faithful anymore, and they've joined with a harlot. And that is the theme of the Watchman video broadcast coming out next week. I hope you enjoyed this week's The Beast of 9/11. And if you have not had a chance to watch it yet, I encourage you to do so. These are two people. Let's see. I can't remember where exactly they are from. And I'm going to read to you the emails. You know, I talk about this stuff all the time. I talk about how people are, you know, they write us and they say, Pastor Mike, you know, can't go to our church anymore, blah, blah, blah. Some of you know sort of what's going on there, and the fact that you can't find a church to go to. I have a pastor friend that had to resign his church about 6 months ago, and not because of anything he did wrong. It's just that people started bucking up against what he was preaching, and he was preaching the truth. And so he resigned the church, let them have it, and he said in the area that he lives in, he can't even find a church to go to, much less preach at, because he's got high standards. What's wrong with having high standards? God has high standards. In fact, God, listen to this, God has standards so high that you cannot attain to them. That's how high God's standards are. I think when it comes to our little black book here that we ought to have high standards and not low ones. I think God in His Word has the highest standard of any God out there. If you do a God-by-God comparison, God has the highest standard of any God out there. Sounds like I am talking about car dealerships or something like that. God has a high standard in His Word. He said, God said this, that His Word was perfect. It had no mistakes in it. God said that the test of a prophet is it has to be right 100% of the time. He can never, ever, ever, never, ever be wrong one time. Not one time. If the prophet is wrong one time, God said, don't worry about it. Okay? So you stop and think about this, how this applies to the Bible issue. Is the Bible perfect? And those that say, well, it used to be perfect. Yeah, and I've got a lot of confidence that the Bible at one time used to be perfect. It was like perfect for like 10 years. But they don't think it's perfect anymore. And according to the Scriptures, when you say the Bible's not perfect, you're saying, I don't have to believe that if I don't want to. God said I don't have to. And it's dangerous. But God has a high standard. God said 100% absolute perfection, zero mistakes whatsoever. That's God's high standard. God has a high standard of morality. You cannot sin one time. Not once can you sin. Can you ever break the law? If you break one law, James says, you've broken the whole law. It's over with for you. Okay? Kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen this show called Ninja Warrior. My son, Caleb, he likes this show. He's a little acrobat is what he is. Ninja Warrior, and it's one of these Japanese shows, and there's an American takeoff of it. And these people, whoever, have to go through this insane, I forgot what you call it, some kind of course that they have to run. They have to jump on this, and they have to do flip-flops over this, and they have to go over this, and this and that and the other. And if you make one mistake, you're over. You don't get a retry. You don't get a redo. I don't care how far along you get. You make one mistake, and it's out. God has that kind of high standard. And thank God that even though we could not attain to that standard, I know one that did. His name is Jesus Christ. And so I rest in Him, and I thank God for sending His Son, Jesus Christ, for me. And I thank God that God has high standards. But anyway, this pastor, he has high standards. He says, number one, if they're preaching NIV, I won't go. It's not that I'll go and read my King James. He said, I won't go. I don't trust what's coming out of that preacher's mouth if he's studying the NIV or any of these other translations. He said, Mike, I won't go to a church where they're playing all this rock and roll music. I won't go. He said, I won't go where they're all the time talking about how signs and wonders are going to take place. He said, I'm not going. And he's having a hard time finding a church. So here is, let's see here. They're both women. And I don't know what happened to the Bethel Church pen. You know, we've only got one in the whole building. And I don't know what happened to it. I was going to write names down. Rather than saying their names, I was going to say, like, this is I don't know, a girl's name, a female name, Betsy. Okay, here's Betsy's email, and here is I don't know. I'll come up with one in a minute. Anyway, here's what Betsy said. And Betsy's not her real name. She says, I just wanted to say thank you for the recent items of CDs I received from you. I've given a few of the previous CDs to my neighbor who moved and will give some more to a friend who introduced me to your teachings. I pray that Christ will continue your ministry to be greater and greater. One friend I told about your ministry is just telling everyone through Facebook. It even wrote to the leadership of our church. I told one minister of our church that when we call ourselves champions in church, apparently she was going to a church that was pushing, you got to be a champion. Be a champion. Okay? And I don't know if you remember our teaching on that. There's only one place in the whole Bible where the word champion's used, and it's talking about Goliath. And they're all talking about how you've got a champion on the inside of you needs to come out. I know what that is now. But anyway, she's following along with that. And she said, I told one minister of our church that when we call ourselves champions in church, we're actually saying we're Philistines, and that is a negative. The whole mission statement of our church is raising champions and taking territories. Let me stop right here. Let me get my little black book out here. What did I call her? Betsy? Betsy, you cannot, I don't know if you are